Hello and welcome to Going for Growth, the road ahead for digital payments in India. I'm Shireen Bhan. The reason why we're having this conversation is because of a very interesting statistic. And here's something that you need to think about. UPI transactions have hit a new high of 1.14 billion in the month of October. That's versus 955 million a month ago. That's a 20.2% rise month on month. To mark this very important milestone and more importantly to talk about the road ahead, joining us on the program is the Managing Director and CEO of NPCI, that's the National Payment Corporation of India, Dilip Asbe. Dilip, thanks very much for joining us on CNBC TV18.
Thank you for having me.
And congratulations on that billion mark.
See, Shireen, I don't think NPCI only deserves this congratulations.
Sure, it's the
this
ecosystem.
Is the ecosystem, yeah.
Yes.
So when you look at the banks, fintech, policy setting by the government and RBI, the app providers. So I think all of the entire ecosystem has contributed to this success of UPI, and this is just the starting, right? So I think what we have to aim as a country, as a citizen scale payment system, 1 billion a day is what we are aiming for. So we all at NPCI believes that this is a start.
Okay, so from a billion a month to a billion a day, that's the aspiration. But I want to understand from you, Dilip, because as you said, it's an ecosystem that's come together to ensure that this is a success. But why specifically has UPI taken off in the manner in which it has? What do you believe are the contributing factors for why UPI has taken off in the way that it has?
So, many factors in that sense. So I think UPI takes the advantage of the smartphones, right? So make it very, very simple for a user to onboard and do a transaction, whether it's a P2P transaction, whether it's a scan and pay transactions. So it's very, very simple for the users to do it. Right. The second thing is it kind of forces the partnership between banks and fintechs, right? So which is like
and one wouldn't have thought that would have been an organic partnership, right?
So with this, at least one thing has happened for sure, that NPCI is for very, very pro bank. Now after UPI, nobody asks, puts these allegations back on us. So I think the combination of fintech and banks coming together has played a key role in this whole success, because the bank's core strength is the money management and back end, the life cycle management for the transactions, and at the same time the fintechs have put in the beautiful apps so that it takes care of the consumer interaction on that side, uses the distribution strengths of the fintechs. So it kind of worked out the model. Plus, I think the policy enablement by the government and RBI. Last 3 years we have seen, I think we have seen more circulars from RBI in last 10 years. So you would see that so much focus from RBI on RBI and the government on digital payments. That's obviously has UPI has been a beneficiary
of it. I'll come to each of those issues in just a second, Dilip, but let's talk about this this wonderful symbiotic partnership that has emerged between fintechs and banks. Because when fintech started to emerge, banks were worried, or at least people were worried about the future of banks themselves. Would this mean that we would actually see the demise of banks? That hasn't happened.
It will never happen.
It will never happen, you're saying.
Because I think the trust in the banking system, and thanks to the RBI and its credibility and its policy making, the trust on the banking system is very, very high. So I don't believe that consumers are going anywhere else other than the banks. Right. So I think, and we leverage that in UPI, right? We ensure that the customers remains with the bank, right, and uses the better front end, right, for the transaction.
So let me then flip the question around. If you're saying that banks aren't going anywhere because of the trust factor, and that is so crucial, then what about the future of fintechs? I'll ask you this in the context of wallets, for instance, or payment banks. There was a lot of sort of enthusiasm, there was a lot of confidence that this could be the next big thing. But there are now question marks on the viability of the business model itself.
See, I think the payment banks, when it was envisaged, it was a long-term business model, right? I don't think anybody envisaged that time that they'll make money in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years time. When you look at the Airtel Payment Bank, for example, they are doing great inroads as far as the transactions, BC locations, and AEPS and other transactions. Tomorrow they will leverage Bharat Bill Payment System. They are also looking at, Paytm is starting the electronic toll collection in a very big way. So I'm saying there are a lot of models which will enable, but it's a long-term view.
in terms of the value of the transactions, how do you actually address the smaller transactions?
Absolutely. I think this is what we keep thinking. And in India, I think the cash requirement is predominantly driven by the low ticket transactions, right? When you want to spend 10,000 rupees, 5,000, normally the debit cards are there. And UPI is not there to replace the debit cards. UPI is there to replace the cash, which is predominantly used for the low ticket. So we believe this scan and pay, and there are players like Bharat Pay, there are players like Phone Pay, Paytm. Once these QR codes, which are there in the at the merchant locations, once they go from 10 million to 40 million, 45 million, you will start seeing this impact, because today what happens is consumer sees it at one location and he doesn't see it at other location. So he still needs that cash. So when you withdraw from once the cash is available, obviously consumer doesn't try any other mode of payments. Once you see the town is painted in red, obviously consumer is going to say that why not using an app and make the transaction at all small ticket locations. So I think the merchant acceptance is the key, and that supply side has to be ubiquitous fully.
Does it worry you that we've seen post demonetization the return to the sort of pre-demonetization levels of cash in circulation?
Not really. I think see, one thing which we'll have to see that lot of people who are outside or in the informal system has been brought inside the formal system. The whole DBT, which was on cash, has been brought last 4 years time to formal, which is direct to the bank account. So all these people are going to take out the cash from the ATM or micro ATM at the rural location. So obviously the cash in circulation is not going to go down immediately. But I think that next 3 to 5, and even the Nandan Nilekani reports talk about it, that obviously 3-4% change over next 5 years is not unreasonable, my assessment. I think we are stepping towards that.
And it's a long haul. Since you spoke about the Nilekani committee recommendations, Dilip, let me ask you about that, because now I guess for this aspiration of $1 billion a day to materialize, incentivization and what kind of incentivization or further incentivization is needed, and of course the disincentives of the use of cash. We've already seen some measures being announced in the budget and so on and so forth. Of the recommendations that the Nilekani committee has put out, what do you think needs to be prioritized?
So and RBI has set up this committee. Committee has submitted the report. RBI is reviewing very strongly with all stakeholders in the market the report, the recommendations and the implementation by the stakeholders repetitively. I think, see, there are few things which we are doing very aggressively. One is obviously trying to expand the use of UPI in terms of new use cases, right? So we launched the SEBI IPO on UPI. So consumer, instead of doing anything else, such a complex use case has been brought inside UPI, and just by clicking few clicks he can do the IPO application. So we are aggressively pushing the new use cases in the market, so that
So what else could we see? You gave us one example. What else could we see in terms of new use cases?
So looking at QR code. Now we are trying to see how QR code can be more popularized. We are trying to work with the government to see whether the GST amounts can be included in the dynamic version of the UPI QR code, obviously with the subject to regulatory approvals. But I'm saying that there are various things which we are trying to do. Internationalization is again studied and looked into as far as UPI is concerned, RuPay is concerned. So I'm saying there are various initiatives which are happening in NPCI right now to try to leverage the growth and do more for the market.
You preempted my question on internationalization. How soon, and what is the realistic timeline for taking UPI international?
It will take time. I think we are working with few countries has expressed the interest.
Which countries?
So Singapore and UAE are the two countries which we are looking into it now. It's still we have to sort out a lot of nitty-gritties in terms of connectivity and those kind of things, and customer charges, the disputes and those kind of things. But I think 6 to 9 months is a reasonable time to look at a pilot. To look at a pilot subject to regulatory approvals.
Regulatory approvals from the jurisdictions that you hope to get
there
into.
And in India.
And
both,
India as well.
Both.
Okay, so this is just for UPI or for RuPay as well?
So RuPay as well, right? None other than Prime Minister himself has been taking it across the geographies, and NPCI as an implementing agency we'll have to fulfill the vision what he has been laying down for us.
Give us an update on RuPay, because there's a lot that we've seen happen with UPI, and it's been the big disruptor. But RuPay,
has
what is the market share now currently?
So as far as domestic, I see. I may be wrong, but our assessment is we are approximately 1/3 market share as far as the transactions are concerned.
Okay.
Right? Obviously, the card market share is much higher, but as far as the transaction value volume is concerned, we are about 1/3. In the domestic market. That's on the debit side. Credit side, we have just started. We are trying to see how we can scale up quickly. As far as RuPay is concerned, we are trying to work with few countries again. That's a very initial stages. We have recently gone live on Bhutan, right? So Indian cardholders going to Bhutan can do a transaction in Bhutan ATMs and point of sale machines. There are again 3-4 countries. Some are in Gulf. We have signed the MOUs, and I think any international project is about 12 to 18 months as far as the timeline to really materialize, go live. So I think it's an initial day, but I think you will see lot of actions after 9 months or so to on an international front.
So what have been the learnings? I mean, clearly, UPI, as I said, has really seen this sort of big takeoff. But for Bheem, for instance, and now for RuPay, what have been the learnings where you believe some tweaks are required to give them similar pushes?
No, obviously, see, the UPI is a mobile payment system. RuPay is a physical card based system, and we compete very hard with Visa and MasterCard as far as domestic market is concerned. And obviously, I think there are multiple providers who are giving the service. So we are fully aware that we can't be 100% of the market like UPI, but we have to be keep competing with Visa, MasterCard, and try to keep fighting for our share, right? So, but I think 30%, 30 to 40% is a great market share as far as the domestic card scheme is concerned, where all the players are present, unlike China.
So that's the aspiration that you have?
Yeah.
Okay. So as the digital payment market continues to grow, and the estimation is over the next 3 years, Credit Suisse, I think, has put out a number of $1 trillion by 2023. But what would be the big risks that you foresee? I mean, when we talk about the banking side, too big to fail is a challenge that not just Indian banks, but also globally, the financial services sector has to grapple with. What does that mean in terms of digital payments? And is that something that you're going to have to deal with from a systemic perspective?
There are two kind of risks we see. One is the consumer education, and second is the cyber security. And we have to keep investing in both. I mean, I don't see a short answer in either of them. Cyber security, obviously, we are trying to learn more and more things. We are from an expertise standpoint also, we are getting better. NPCI standpoint, we kind of have best in class tools to keep on protecting the central infrastructure what we have. So might be over provisioning, but we keep on investing on the cyber security side. Consumer education side, NPCI alone can't do anything. I think we'll have to keep joining the hands with the banks, RBI, and the other ecosystem players to keep on investing into this area, because I think one entity can't make cover the landscape what we have today.
Sure. Speaking about other possible systemic risks, and this is where one is hearing about the possibility of a cap, market share cap, and so on and so forth for fintech companies. Is that something that you believe is the way forward?
See, we have yet not. I wouldn't like to comment on that, because I don't think we have taken a firm decision on that. There is some initial discussion happening, but it is still at that level. We are yet to finalize this, and once NPCI finalizes that, then we'll have to go back to the stakeholders and the regulator to take approval. So I think it's very early stages. I don't think.
Sure. While it might be early stages, what would be the rationale or some of the issues that you would have to ponder over before coming to that decision?
So we have been debating that, what kind of risk we have on the app side, what kind of risk we have on the PSP bank side, where the app kind of connects back. And I think it's all about having the cyber security risk and those kind of risks there. And and we believe that there has to be mitigation. There has to be and that's where the multi-bank model what we launched for the UPI, wherein all large players now come through multiple banks and which some of the players which are not multi-bank right now, which we have asked them to be multi-bank in due course. So I think it's I don't think on the app side the restrictions are coming so soon. We are still in the initial discussions, and we'll see how it goes.
What's the status on WhatsApp?
So I think it's still under the process right now. It might take some more time.
Okay, might take some more time. But how do you generally see the competitive landscape, and what it could mean in terms of driving this whole ecosystem?
See, I think all of us keep saying that UPI is a consumer choice, right? So we kind of don't force a particular app or a B particular app, right? So we say it's a consumer choice. So today the situation is, there might be 4 apps or 5 apps which are about 80-85% of the total value of UPI. The situation will change tomorrow, right? Because once the consumer is on one app, it's very, very easy for him to download the amount of friction what the consumer has is to download that other app and start using it. So I don't see that a major risk of 4 apps, 5 apps having 80% of UPI.
But you don't believe that there will be a stickiness in this market? I mean, the first mover advantage is a clear first mover advantage.
Obviously, it says that, but with the consumer going digital, the switching cost comes to near zero, right? So anybody who's number one, you can't say that he'll remain number one unless he keep on doing better job and better service, right? So obviously it's like a race where you have to keep running better than others, right? The moment you go slow, you're about to lose the numbers.
What are the pain points that the stakeholders are coming to you with, the ecosystem is coming to you with, that they want addressed?
So many things, right? We have a governance mechanism, steering committee, right? Where most of the decision, except NPCI fees, are decided in that forum. So steering committee is made up of banks, non-banks. There are industry bodies like IMAI.
There have been questions on whether the representation at NPCI needs to change, but is that something that you believe should be considered?
Have you heard it recently? That's the question I have. And that's why
maybe to be fair, maybe not so much recently.
That's where and I think RBI, us, and everybody is very clear that and we fully appreciate that fact that there has to be other players involved in the decision making, and that's where you would go back and see NPCI has transparently displayed on its website that who is the member of the steering committees, and you would see enough number of non-banks and industry bodies participating there. So I don't hear this out. I leave it to
So what are the 2 or 3 big ticket items that you believe, from a regulatory perspective, from a policy intervention perspective, need to be addressed to ensure that there is no sort of slackening of pace here?
I don't think we require anything from the regulator now. I think with the Nandan Nilekani report and the regulatory decisions, I think we have enough on hand for the execution. So even
should there be a separate regulator?
No, I don't think we need.
You don't believe so? Because that was a debate and there was a battle between.
I think it was some time back. Now I don't see.
So you don't believe that there's a need for a separate regulator for digital payments?
I think there is a lot of efforts are required by the ecosystem to take now, because now I don't think there can be better situation for digital payments to scale up further, right? So now the environment is great, the atmosphere is great. I think now all the players has to now take this to the next level. So I don't think these are the issues which are behind
in the past. Okay. So since we were talking about incentives, and as you pointed out, the Nilekani committee has made some recommendations. The regulator has also looked at some. The government is trying to do its part as well. What would you say are the key incentives that may be required to give this a further fillip?
See, obviously on the
the GST, for instance. I mean, this is a special GOM within the GST Council has been discussing digital payments for a while now.
I think I think obviously the decision remains back with the government, but I think there should be incentivization from the government as far as GST is concerned on digital payments, especially, right? Both to the banks and their customers as well as merchant, right? And obviously I'm sure government will consider this. The whole ecosystem has been asking this back to the government, and I think GST is just stabilized now. So I think now government should think about it.
Okay, so that's one of the key asks. What would the others be?
To be honest, as I told you, I think we have enough on our plate to execute. So I don't think we are now looking at more enablement from that, because I think government and RBI has done enough in the last 2-3 years. To be honest, I think they have done their part. Now
Right.
I think the ecosystem has to deliver on their side.
So speaking of the ecosystem delivering, what are the trends that you're noticing now, especially in terms of the change in value and the transactions that we're seeing? I mean, what are the interesting insights that you're picking up on, and the adoption of digital payments, especially in tier 3 and tier 4 cities?
So I think the way, definitely very, very encouraging trend we see is QR code scan and pay. We were very skeptical about it, whether it will really pick up in a short period, because it's a consumer behavior change, right?
Right.
Right now you're taking out cash card, whether you will be able to take out a phone and scan the QR code and pay. But I think we are, thanks to all the startups, PhonePe, BharatPe, Paytm, I see a huge growth in that, and which is a very, very encouraging.
Do you
sign.
have to have all the apps on your phone, by the way?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll show you that. I have
Just
most
so-
of them. Most of them. Yeah. I keep testing.
And do you give feedback as well?
But my preferred app is Beam.
I guess you had to, right?
Yeah.
But the new version of Beam, talk to us about that.
So we have. So it's going to be launched in stages, and I think Honorary IT Minister launched it about a couple of weeks back.
Yes.
So what we're trying to do now is Beam is going to be as an ecosystem app. Earlier we had positioned Beam as a starter app. So a lot of features we deliberately did not position in that app. Now what we're trying to get offers, we are trying to get more activations. So next 2-3 months time you will see Beam app as good as other ecosystem apps.
When we talk about banks, and we started with that, so I'll end by asking you about that. I remember my conversation with, and you were on that panel when the SBI chief Rajneesh Kumar said that,
fact,
look, is today the India's largest fintech company.
You were telling, so I told Mr. Rajneesh Kumar should not be sad about not investing into fintech. One is sitting right there.
I know,
right?
exactly.
So he was very happy.
Exactly.
He was extremely happy. Yeah.
So do you think that is going to be, I mean, the SBI digitalization and the innovations that banks are going to drive is really going to be the next wave of pushing this?
Absolutely. I think because the banks are doing 3-4 things in the way I look at it. Banks are also building the marketplaces, right? So if you look at Yono, if you look at the PayZapp, right? If you look at the Pocket, they are also trying to build the marketplaces. Second is, they're sitting on a lot of data, right? So they will leverage this data a lot more, right? All the lending and other decision making, what they will do basis data, and they are trying to build this whole big data platforms, and I think now it's all stabilizing.
Right.
So next 2-3 years we will see a lot of cross sell value add for the banks, leveraging the data what these payment systems are generating in next 3 to 4 years.
Since you spoke about data and the aspiration for us to go more and more deep.
Important items के बारे में आप brief कर दीजिएगा. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for coming over. There are, of course, a few decisions